Hello and welcome back to the Guns on Pegs podcast. My name is George Brown and I'm the editor at Guns on Pegs and the Game Card. As usual, I'm joined by Chris Horn, managing director of Guns on Pegs. Chris, the season has started.
It has, finally.
So presumably you've just been in the grouse butt the whole time, right?
Yeah, I'm fourth day in. It's tough, isn't it? Actually, that's impossible, George. It's Tuesday. It's only first of the season. Anyway, of course I haven't. Yeah. Now, what I'm more excited about is that the focus of conversation now starts on like actually the days out that people have had, rather than like the crap about what's going to happen and all that stuff. That's what I'm excited about. So yeah, it's encouraging, isn't it?
I know a lot of people didn't manage to get their days on the 12th because it was so hot, but it is nice to be seeing new pictures from people out having a nice time shooting rather than the recycled ones. It's good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's going to be, obviously it's going to be an eventful season, and my diary isn't rammed full of grouse invites, but on the basis that we don't get sent loads of drinks to this pod, I don't expect people going to message in giving me grouse invites, but obviously I've got my gun here and I'm ready if you do want to. But
yeah, but I was thinking about that today. I reckon we've had more shooting invites than we have drinks sent to us.
That's interesting.
Well, I have anyway.
Well, hey. Well, grouse invite would top it off, so you know.
pod@gunsonpegs.com. Chris, we better get on and introduce our guest who's joining us today.
I like this one. Our guest today is a shoot manager. He's a stalker, and he's a 5th Dan black belt in kickboxing. So he's fought all across the world, winning many titles, including European Championships, and has won the World Championships 5 times. So when he's not kicking people for fun, he's out in the field following his passions, which have created a successful operation, getting many people into stalking and shooting. He lives in Bedfordshire, which is also the home to his shoots, Beckerings Park and Buttermilk Shoot, both adjacent to Woburn. A massively well-known name and a Field Sports Channel regular. For those of you that have seen him, a huge warm welcome to Paul Childerley.
Thank you. What an introduction. I can't believe it. Hey,
hey, we do our research.
Well, yeah. What more can I say?
Well, you can definitely tell us a bit about kickboxing for a second, because we talk about shooting all the time. We're much more interested in that.
Yeah, kickboxing. I mean, it's I kicked off when I was about 15, 16. I got a bit of a beaten up by a few guys and joined the local club and started doing it, and so it just really suited me.
Did you know quite quickly you were good at it? Had like instructors, could they sort of spot it?
They must have done, really. And I obviously was fit from doing all the work with the gamekeeping, strong, young, keen, and yeah, just literally took to it and started competing about 20, or probably about 19, and then yeah, just kept on going through really, and then going up through the grades and teaching. Got my own club for about 24 years as well. So I taught a lot of people,
wow,
all the way from beginners all the way through to black belt, and had probably about 5 or 6 world champions as well that I was like trained under me. So yeah, it's been good. And now I've got my son. He's now coming up to 13, and he's just done his black belt and passed it about 2 months ago. So that's pretty cool.
That's dangerous.
Amazing.
13-year-old at school with a black belt in kickboxing.
Yeah. So yeah, proud moment really.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. I know the thing that amazes me about things like boxing and kickboxing, that kind of thing. You know, I play cricket. There's not a lot of risk if you lose when you play a game of cricket. Like, it doesn't really matter. If you lose at kickboxing, there's consequences, I feel, that I don't think I'm prepared to take on.
It's quite funny, really. I got quite a reasonable sized nose, or big nose, some people would say, and it's still pretty good. But I don't know. All contact sports have got a risk. When you're kickboxing or boxing or martial art, you're generally fighting one person the same weight, which is pretty cool. When you go in a rugby pitch and you got a whole team of like 18 stone warriors who come in and rip you and hit you sideways when you weren't expecting it, that for me is a big risk. So those boys are my heroes on the combat sport front.
Yeah, that's true. I can understand that analogy. So are you still at the sort of top level of what you do?
Yeah. Oh God. So I retire. So,
I've asked the wrong question.
I basically retire. I wanted to win the world. Basically, I wanted to win a title, and I got the British title and went through to the European and went all the way through the ranks. And then when I won the World Championships, it was probably the biggest anticlimax in my martial arts career.
Really?
Literally the next day, I was like almost depressed. I was like, what am I going to do? I thought, if I win it twice, then I'm a real world champion. So I defended it, and then I did exactly the same thing again. So I thought, right, if I do it 3 times, be undisputed, So I did it 3 times, same effect again. So right, if I go up a weight category, win everything in that weight category, and then do it again, then and so on and so on. Then I retired. No, that's what. Then actually, I went to Russia, to Ukraine actually, to fight their world champion out there, a different organisation, and amalgamate 2 world titles. And that was an unreal experience actually. I went out there on my own, and a coach, and there was armed guards on the ring. That was quite an experience. But I won, and then I retired, sort of. Then I come out of retirement to fight a pro boxer, which I won, and then I did some MMA before the end of it as well. Did 3 fights of MMA. Didn't like that. Won them, but I didn't like it. And then I retired. But then I come out about 4 years ago, and then did it again just for.
Do you know what? There's something you said which is really interesting, and it applies to many walks of life. I've heard sportsmen talk about it a lot, sportsmen and women, but it's also applicable in business, which is it's not the end result, it's the journey that people do it for. And the end result can just kill people. So you've kind of got to always have something bigger.
It's all about goals.
Like a deep, all about goals, isn't it?
All about goals, yeah. I mean, that's the same as my business. Every single thing for me is about goals. When I get there, it's a few years ago, I wanted to buy a Porsche, and I had to save up obviously enough money to buy a Porsche, and I bought a really nice Porsche, and it was like, okay, drove it for a bit the first year, second year, didn't drive it, so I sold it. It was almost the journey to get there was 10 times better than actually getting it. Yeah.
So true.
Yes. Achievement ticked off next.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's the feeling that you were able to do what your goal was rather than actually completing the goal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. 100%.
Almost a different podcast in its own right, that whole conversation, but yeah, it's fascinating. Really, really interesting. Well, congratulations. Yeah. I mean, what a mega journey. And I love the fact that you won all these ones but didn't enjoy it, and then hadn't had enough, so came back, won it again.
Yeah. I think I got one more in me. I reckon I could do one more.
Really?
Yeah. I wanted, because basically it's for anybody that trains. If you haven't got a target or a goal, it's very hard to go. Those hot days to go training, and I'm the same as anybody else. So I'm keeping fit, but I just need one more. I think one more. I got one more in there.
Yeah. That's like having a sort of like a half marathon in the diary type thing, just to try and get you out running for general fitness, or you need that thing, don't you? Otherwise, you just give up.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, brilliant! All that fitness talk, George.
Yes, I think we've better find out what it is that kickboxing world champions like to drink. Paul, what's that you're drinking?
What do you expect? It's a Tuesday evening, it's water. and it is. Because, I mean, I don't generally, because I've done all the training all my time, a lot of the time I've missed out on parties, weddings for drinking, because obviously you can't drink before you got a world title fight. So water's probably been the key to my life, apart from on shoot days now a little bit. In the week, I generally don't drink. So I save it up for the Fridays and Saturdays and have a good time on them evenings.
Fair enough. I know what you mean. I look forward to an excuse to have a drink on the podcast, though, even though it's like often at strange times. I don't really mind.
I mean, we're not even joking. One of the main reasons we're still doing the podcast is because it's a good excuse to have a drink at 4:00 on a Tuesday afternoon.
It's so true. Changes my outlook on the day. George, what have you got this time?
We were saying earlier we've not been sent very many drinks, but in fact, I was sent from the English whiskey company a sort of sample pack. So they sent me 2 bottles of whiskey, a peated one and an unpeated one. And I'm sorry to say that I've drunk those already. They've gone. But they also sent me something called the PX, which is sherry mixed with whiskey. So Pedro Jimenez sherry mixed with single malt whiskey. It's 20% alcohol by volume. It's black like the night, and it's really very good. I've got it in a big glass with some ice, and it's sort of a bit like port, I suppose, a little bit like port. It's very sweet. I don't think you could drink a lot of it, and I think if you did, you would really be suffering the next day. But it's really, really good. So I can highly recommend it. I think it'd be excellent on a shoot day. 11s is or something like that, or after lunch. I think it'd be a really good drink for that, because it's not too punchy. It's kind of around the same sort of level as what I suspect slow gin is. Around the 20% mark. So it's really good.
So you haven't deviated too far from your area of expertise.
Yeah, that's true. But it's if people are going to send me drinks, I'm going to drink them on the podcast.
Well, people are starting to know your area of expertise. It actually might even become that. Would you consider it that?
Well, no, I'm definitely not an expert. I think you need about 40 years more practice than I've had to be an expert in whiskey. I really don't know anything about them at all. It was only recently I worked out why I like the ones that I like.
Oh, really?
So, I think there's such a huge world to explore with whiskey that I don't think it would ever be really possible to say that you are an expert.
Yeah, this is true. Same applies to wine.
Yeah, that and 15 years of smoking has probably completely destroyed my palate anyway.
That'll do it.
Chris, what have you got?
So I've got a gin and tonic, and Kerr's Gin is our favourite, as we've talked about, because they very kindly sponsor the podcast party. And I've actually got a Yorkshire tonic within this gin, but I'm trying something else, which is local to me. I wanted to see what it was like, because it's from Chapeldown, the guys who do the English sparkling wine, and it's a Bacchus gin. So Bacchus being the grape that produces a lot of English wine, and it's really tasty. Actually, it's a bit different to what you'd probably normally expect. I've stuck the Yorkshire tonic in it, and yeah, so nice, refreshing, given that it's been so warm recently. But for the first time ever, I've also got a "What's That You're Eating" with it. I've just pretty much finished a big bag of crisps, and I've got to give a shout out to these people, because two guys came along at the game fair and they dropped a whole load of crisps off with us, and they were a couple of guys who called themselves Two Farmers, hand cooked crisps, and they're awesome. I wouldn't normally do it wasn't necessarily for a reason or anything, but I thought I had to give them a shout out. I've been eating the sausage and mustard, the Herefordshire sausage and mustard ones, and they're so good. So if you see Two Farmers crisps, get a load of them. They're really good, and they've also got this quite epic packaging, which you can a crisp bag which you can stick in your compost, which I've never seen before. I thought that's quite a nice touch. So anyway, yeah, crisps and a Chapeldown Bacchus gin and tonic is my tipple for our chat with Paul.
Excellent. Sounds very good. Right. So let's move on. We're going to do now, Paul, the section that we call Whose Bird Is It Anyway? Which is where we ask our listeners to send in their shooting quandaries and queries and dilemmas and all that sort of thing. And we do our level best to offer them some sort of advice, helpful or otherwise. This episode's Whose Bird Is It Anyway comes from somebody who we shall call Jeff, because that's his name. It's quite a long one, but it's worth sticking with, I think. So Jeff writes, "It's with a troubled heart that I submit this to the Whose Bird Is It Anyway segment of your podcast. I'm Jeff from San Antonio, Texas in the United States. This dilemma involves Mr. Johns, a gentleman of my acquaintance for the past few years. But I'm convinced that if you change my name from Jeff with a J to say Jeff with a G, it will sufficiently confound Mr. Johns because he's not too bright, and I will remain anonymous. I'm a lifelong bird hunter, former competitive shotgun shooter, and a former shotgun shooting instructor. 4 of my shooting friends who are familiar with the circumstances are evenly split 2-2 in their opinions. It's agreed by the lot of us that your opinion decides the final answer once and for all. It all started when, 4 years ago or so, Mr. Johns was invited on a dove hunt. To be fair, he'd not shot much in his life, but that did little to discourage him from shooting at nearly everything that flew from where he stood to the horizon. In a word, his shooting could only charitably be described as awful. So bad, in fact, that were he to choose a shotgun as his primary method of robbing a bank, I would strongly encourage him to consider another form of persuasion. To his credit, he later approached me and asked that since I was a shooting instructor some years back, would I mind spending a bit of time and help get him up to speed? I dutifully agreed. He was a stellar student over the ensuing months. He read, he did mounting and swing exercises, and perhaps most importantly, shot hundreds of clays with me looking over his shoulder, and many more hundreds on his own. Over the course of the ensuing off-season, he went from embarrassingly inept to respectably marginal, perhaps even adequate. The following dove season, Mr. Johns rather insinuated himself onto our outings. Unlike driven shooting, where there's a set distance between pegs, the distance between dove hunters is determined by the flight line of the birds, available cover, and most importantly, generally close enough to continue conversations with one another whilst waiting for the next flight of birds. As dove hunters do not have previous night and post-shoot parties replete with single malts and sloe gin, we typically conduct our socialization during the shoot. And herein lies the problem. Now that Mr. Johns has become a passable shot, he's become convinced that anything at which he shoots must have died at his hand. In short, if he is shot in the general direction of a bird, and should said bird fall, without regard to actually shot it, and with shameless disregard of how implausible his hitting the bird may have been, he cries, "Mine," and convinced of his prowess, walks over and retrieves the bird to his bag. So irritating is this pathology that as a practitioner of medicine, I have coined a new diagnostic term, hubris, that is, hubris while shooting a shotgun. I'm submitting an article regarding this phenomenon to the British Medical Journal. It should be available to the lay public by the end of this year. My group and I, thoroughly vexed, have cajoled him, admonished him, even ridiculed him in as gentlemanly a way as possible, to absolutely no avail. So here is my dilemma. Given the time I have invested in Mr. John's instruction, the hours I have suffered listening to his gloating of his marginal shooting skills, and the more than 50 score of doves he has shot at and flared from distances that defy ballistics, which have frankly driven me and the others in our group to the brink of apoplexy, I ask you, do you really think it necessary that I stop sleeping with his girlfriend?
What?
There's a lot there, isn't there?
This guy's a right joker, isn't he? What's he called? His name is Jeff. Jeff with a G or Jeff with a J. It doesn't matter.
I mean, without question, it's the best written submission we've had in 43 episodes. I absolutely love it. It's so well written. But I'm not entirely clear on what we're trying to advise him on here.
I mean, I get the impression that do you really think it necessary I stop sleeping with his girlfriend is a bit of a joke. I'm hoping that's not what he's asking our opinion on.
Well, okay. Well, let's start with that. Should he stop sleeping with this chap's girlfriend?
Paul?
A bird in the hand.
I mean, you're asking for this is a moral dilemma if ever you've heard one.
Well, it's interesting, really. But, let's think about it sensibly. If he stops sleeping with her, is he going to get any more invites?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. We don't know which way round this is happening. Oh, yeah. Did he say that?
Mr. Johns was invited to join an existing group, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, so is he inviting Mr. Johns because it means he gets to spend time with his girlfriend?
That's where it is, I think. That's where it is. It's a double-ended,
Now it all makes sense, doesn't it?
I mean, that's brutal.
It's very good, but it is a tricky situation, though. Like,
well, which bit? I mean, this surely.
What do you do when somebody thinks they're a lot better than they are?
That's what we need to be debating here, because I think he's having a laugh at us with his "should I stop sleeping with his girlfriend?" So right. So the point here is he's got a mate that, quite frankly, doesn't get it. He's claiming everything, irrespective of how long he's been shooting, how much knowledge he's managed to gain, and how well he's shot. And it's obviously annoying these guys no end. So, what advice would you give this guy, Paul, in a situation like this?
Well, on a serious note, if he's giving him instruction on the playground and stuff, maybe give him some instruction in the bedroom. and then he might have this problem. Oh, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's us British are very courteous, and we like to yours. Oh, maybe I'll have a shot. So it's how we grew up. So maybe he needs to come across here and do some shooting with us for a bit.
Yeah. He'd be brought back down a peg or two quite quickly, wouldn't he?
Yeah, stick him in between two hot shots. I think he'll be eating his words.
Yes. It occurs to me, just from the way it's written, I think Jeff might be a Brit. I don't know if Mr. Johns is a Brit, but just there's something that tells me that Jeff might be an expat.
I see what you mean. He's not taking the piss out of us too much, and he's made up a whole story about himself as well as. You see, the awkward thing about a situation like the situation like this, just imagine yourself. Well, you don't have to imagine yourself. You're in your local syndicate, right? And your neighbour shoots one of your birds. Now, we don't get precious, us Brits, about whose bird it really was. I don't think it's not about that, but it is quite annoying when people claim birds that you were quite proud to have shot. And I don't know why it's annoying, but it is.
Yeah, I think, definitely. I think you're quite proud you've taken the shot. Good clean kill. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also the thing you don't want to be labelled with is the greedy gun. That's the biggest turn off for joining any syndicate or getting people coming to want to join one of my syndicates. Getting the right team together is very important.
Yeah, that's true. And I suppose if he was claiming birds publicly, then that's going to annoy other guns. And as in this situation it is with these guys. I just think that if you're in a syndicate, you're not going to get invited back, are you?
No.
So that begs the question. It's back to the same topic. Why do they keep inviting him?
Simple.
It is, isn't it?
Well, I think we know the answer, don't we?
Yeah. So the real dilemma here is not any of the questions he's given us. It's about what his priorities are, this Jeff guy, in life. It's whether they're shooting or women.
I think we know where they are already.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's put up with it long enough, hasn't he?
Definitely. Oh, dear.
So our advice is you don't need our advice.
Yeah, you've got it great already.
Yeah, keep on trooping on.
Well, it's a good submission. I appreciate it. I can't work out if he's taking the piss out of us, trying to get us in an awkward situation like we're clearly in now, or whether it's a genuine problem that he needs an answer to.
Well, either way, I think like you say, it was a really, really good submission. Thank you very much, Jeff, for sending it in. Let's move on, though. Chris, what's the unpopular opinion this week?
Yes, so this unpopular opinion comes from someone we shall call Herman, who writes, as my name suggests... Hold on a second. Did Herman choose his own name, George?
He did not.
I think he did.
No, he didn't.
Yeah. Paul, I don't get to do any naming on this podcast. George gets that wonderful job. Anyway, so as my name suggests, I'm of Teutonic descent, but had the great privilege of growing up on these hallowed isles. Experienced shooting across the world, I'm glad to see that everyone is trying to do more to improve its reputation. From deer stalking certification offered by different bodies to the BGA and the Code of Good Shooting Practice, a lot has changed for the better. Gone are the times where you're able to get your shotgun certificate at the post office. While I'm not advocating a hunting license exam such as the one in Germany, nicknamed the Green A-Level due to its depth and intense nature, I'm still baffled that game shoots don't insist on some proof of competence. For most driven shooting in Germany, you now need a Scheissnachweis, in essence, proof of recent practice. The license, or knowledge, plus the practice and competence, therefore, is one of our cornerstone arguments in favour of shooting. How easy would it be for shoots to insist on this and to ask for something similar in the UK? A simple clay ground receipt is enough, and I'm sure everyone would benefit greatly. Interesting.
That's a very interesting one. Paul, what do you think?
Pass. It's a real good question, really, because they've gone down that route a little bit with the rifle side of things and stalking with the level 1 and 2, which a lot of people have jumped on now and getting their level 1 and 2, which is great. Just got to be a bit careful with it all, that you're not penalising people to get into it. I mean, the pigeon shooter, the rough shooter, are making it more expensive, more hassle, more complicated for the Jeffs of the world. Or was it the Jeff? Or was the other guy?
Yeah,
it was the other guy.
It's Mr. Johns.
Mr. Johns.
Mr. Johns, yeah, Mr. Johns.
But then again, if Mr. Johns didn't make it, that'd be no bad thing. It sounds like.
Well, unless he brought his girlfriend.
How is Mr. Johns' girlfriend got into a conversation about licenses?
I don't know. He's just trying to tie it up. No, I think it could be. I don't know. I think we do quite a good job personally. I think we actually do a good job. I mean, guys that come out with me, whether it's a rifle or shotgun, they start at the beginning. They don't go straight on a big driven day to start with. They start off with a bit of walked up or.
You've touched on something, the really important place to start here, which is the fact that we have DSC, Deer Stalking Certificate, in the UK. How long's that been around? Can you remember?
Must be 30 years. Must be.
I mean,
25, 30 years.
Yeah, because the growth in game shooting specifically has happened a huge amount in the last, probably within that time.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah.
So it's at a disadvantage sort of talking about it now rather than then, isn't it? And DSC is quite intensive. Maybe for those that aren't familiar with it, can you just give a bit of an overview on that?
Yeah, so basically you have to do health and hygiene, identification, rifle test on the range. It's like a very basic thing, but it's a good sort of introduction. A lot of police forces ask for that now before you get deer caliber, which I think is a good thing. But I think time in the field with a person is what you need. A certificate doesn't give you the ethics behind it, the training, but it's a good way to say you're sort of competent.
So it could be better than that. That's interesting. The time in the field point is interesting. George, what do you reckon?
Well, I don't hate this idea. I've got to say, and I wouldn't object with everybody having to serve some sort of apprenticeship before being let out with a shotgun. Chris, you and I, and I'm sure the same is true of you, Paul. We were all out shooting at the age of 11, 12 or whatever with our dads or whoever it happened to be, who sort of fulfilled that role. But for people who aren't lucky enough to have grown up shooting, there's ever such a lot that you've got to get your head around. And a lot of it is, obviously there's important things like safety and respect and that kind of thing. But I think there's also stuff that you just sort of pick up kind of through osmosis almost, just through being around it a lot. How many must have done a decade of beating before I was ever allowed near 5 years when I was old enough to walk, I was out beating. So, how do you get that experience in if you've picked up a shotgun when you're 25 because somebody's invited you on a corporate day or something along those lines? Where does that grounding come from for those who don't grow up with it? I can totally see his point, but
what we've discussed then is 3 points. You've got etiquette, which you've alluded to quite a bit there. And I think that experience is the only way to learn that. I think etiquette is something you've almost got to put aside for a second. But the other 2 points you've discussed is like skill and knowledge. And I think that there is something out there already which has the makings of a step in massively the right direction here, because the GWCT produced the knowledge test a couple of years ago now. Must have been just before lockdown started. And that is like a good way. It's like a game shooting knowledge test to demonstrate you understand sort of some of the basics. And it gives you a very basic online form of accreditation. So that for me is a real step in the right direction. But the other point is about the idea that this chap here, Herman, mentions, which is, could you go to a playground and just have a little sort of sign off from an instructor to say basic gun handling safety skills, that sort of thing? If you're new to shooting, that would be a really nice little thing to get off the back of a lesson, and then be able to demonstrate to a shoot, if you're new to shooting, that don't worry, I've essentially been vetted. But I don't know what difference it would actually make. But I agree with Paul, though, and also going back to something he said, any barriers to shooting for me are a major concern. I don't really want to be doing those, because I think the shooting needs to be as big as it possibly can be for its positive arguments.
Yeah, I think they're all very valid points, and I completely agree that you don't want it to be a barrier to entry. It could almost be, I think if you spun it the right way, it could almost be seen as a route to entry rather than a barrier to entry. Because let's face it, shooting is, from outside, potentially quite difficult to get into. But yeah, I think I don't hate the idea at all. But I think what are we going to do? How are we going to resolve this? Is it unpopular or not?
I think it's got a possibility. It's just it's like, how do you enforce it, police it, and who's going to be the governing body? Which organisation is going to take the accreditation?
And therein lies the problems, because the other major problem is that it can't just be for people who are new to shooting. You have to do it for everyone. And we know the shooting world enough. There's absolutely a cat and hell's chance that you're going to get the vast majority of the shooting world doing anything like this. Our census tells us the average year's experience is 36 or something. People have got as many years experience as I have years been alive. And therefore, trying to get them to say, can you prove your game shooting prowess? It's like, it's almost like asking them, are they any good in bed? It's just, you don't do it.
But is it maybe it's like some of them are probably the ones who need it most, of course. Is it like getting a 70-year-old to retake their driving test?
Yes, exactly that. Yeah. So that's an unpopular opinion.
I think you do tend to find, though, a lot of people do go beating first, don't they? They tend to go beating, or they go along to a shoot day to experience what a driven day is like or a walked up day is like, and then they slowly, not many people just jump straight into it.
That would be my amendment, is compulsory 2 days of beating before you're allowed out with a shotgun.
Yeah. For free.
For free.
Unpaid beating. That's the thing. If you started out, so 50% of people, 49 I think it is, of people started shooting or getting into shooting by going beating. And I think there's no better way than understanding the basics, because you see everything from the beating line, don't you? You see etiquette, you see who's, all that sort of stuff. And I think that almost needs to be the unwritten rule of getting into shooting, irrespective of who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Do a few days in the line.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Get shouted at by you on a day.
Yeah, perfect. You're more than welcome.
And then kick to the floor. Yeah. Good. George, are you happy with that then?
Yeah, I think I am. I don't think we've decided if it's an unpopular opinion. I think it's not an unpopular opinion.
I don't think it is.
So that's okay, good. But I still think, beating is the way forward, and that's the best way of doing it. And it comes down to the shoot owner, doesn't it, Paul? Who they want to have on their shoot in the end.
Yeah, definitely, and you can soon see if they're competent or not, and
And also, I guess it's down to the shoots to be able to provide somebody to stand with a novice and that kind of thing, and that's often you can shoot as many clays as you like, but it doesn't
exactly
prepare you for big covey of partridge coming at you.
Yeah, and I think we've all stood on a peg and not shot very well. So,
yes,
I don't know. I don't know. Have you done that, George?
Once or twice, Chris. Once or twice. Right. Okay. So, Chris, that is officially not an unpopular opinion. So, moving on. Talk to us about this week's shooting hero.
Yeah. Pre-warning, a slight change of pace with the shooting hero. This is an emotional one, so here goes. It comes from someone who emailed in by the name of Josh, but it also is Josh, Luke, Ozzy and Will, 4 guys who've messaged in. And they say, I'd like to propose a shooting hero which I'm sure is familiar to every shooting friendship group out there. However, I'd like to propose one on behalf of myself and his friends, the Harper Adams Shooting Club, and for those who know him back home in Warwickshire, as well as far and wide. That chap is called Len Eden. Len models the country gentleman and budding young shot role, making him a great ambassador for our sport. He holds the value of being polite, respectful, generous, and always willing to lend a hand, being the last man at the bar telling tales whilst making new ones, and to top it off, being one hell of a shot. Although we will never tell him that until now for fear of his head getting too big. Unfortunately, earlier this year, Len made the decision to take his own life in the early hours of New Year's Day, handing a devastating blow to those who knew him. Sadly, I'm sure I'm not alone amongst your listeners in having to suffer the pain of losing a dear friend through this terrible illness that is mental health. It's hard to put into words how much of a hero Len is to all of us, but I believe he's a true shooting hero as Len's spirit continues to fight it. This is that because of Len. Awareness has been raised across the rural community and the wider population to the loss of what was considered to many a great man. Not only has Len's story made many people open up to one another to talk about the way they feel in our group and rural community, but it has stopped others from suffering the same way. Hearing tales of Len's story saving lives to me is what optimizes a true hero, because even though he's not here in body to tell us or to speak up and talk to one another, his story has been so powerful in doing that in spirit. So that's from Josh, Luke, Ozzy and Will, their nomination for a shooting hero, which is Len Eden. An emotional one.
It's a very, very powerful letter.
Hugely. So I've been following this since Josh messaged in, and they've raised over £63,000 on a page, a much loved page, which is a website you can go to. If you Google Len Eden, EADON, which is an amazing amount of money from a lot of people. They've raised it for the prevention of young suicide, the Farming Community Network, and the Farm Safety Foundation. And I messaged back Josh off the back of this, and I said, look, obviously it's a lovely submission. I totally get it. It all makes total sense. And if there's anything we can do to help. So obviously talking about it is one good thing we can help do. But I also said to him, look, Len's gone and earned himself a pair of garters. So is there anything you can do with those? And they've got a ball coming up, a hunt ball, and they're going to auction off Len's podcast garters, which someone's going to own, and the donation's going to go to the charities, which is a small little token which we'd be delighted to support. So and Josh, Luke, Ozzy and Will, obviously we're sending them garters as well. So very good.
Yes. I mean, I just want to say on this, I come from a farming background, and farming is at times, as I'm sure it is gamekeeping as well, Paul, a lonely place, and you're at the mercy of the weather and international markets and all the rest of it, as we're seeing, this year with bird flu and grain prices and all that kind of stuff. So you're out working by yourself a lot of the time, no one to talk to. So I guess the message from me is, if you've got a mate who works in farming or gamekeeping or one of these rural professions, pick up the phone, have a chat with them, go to the pub, whatever. Talking to each other is the most important thing around all this. So I think thanks to Josh and all of his mates for raising awareness of it.
Yeah, I agree. Not talked about enough.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Actually, there's been some hard times for the gamekeeping industry. Not just for myself with running the shoot when straight into pandemic with COVID. Then you go bird flu. So it's been a bad 3 years. But also, gamekeepers out there, it's like they're going to lose their job, their house, and they got a family. It's a tough old time. So yeah, like you said, get out and talk to somebody, share your problems, and tomorrow is another day, definitely.
Exactly. And the hardest part is that opening up the conversation, picking up the phone, or even just texting a mate. And the Gamekeepers Welfare Trust talk about this, and the fact that they're there to talk to people. It can be anonymous, to try and sort of, to be there for keepers, because admitting that you're struggling to a mate is often the sort of most brave thing that you can do. So, remember that these people are out there to help you. There are people always willing to listen, and so I suppose the message, as George said, if you think someone might be in this position, see if you can help. And
exactly. So as you say, Chris, Josh and his mates are all now members of the Most Noble Order of the Garters, as are Jeff and Herman from earlier, and now Paul as well. You'll be getting a set of the highly exclusive Guns on Pegs podcast Shooting Sock Garters. If you too have got a shooting confession, a quandary, or a query that you'd like our guests to help you with, or if you've got an unpopular opinion you'd like us to debate, or if you've got a shooting hero to nominate, drop us an email to pod@gunsonpegs.com, and if we use it in any future episode, the Garters will be on their way to you. Chris, we've got to...
Yeah, Paul. So a couple of episodes ago, a good friend of ours, Tim Adams, who you might know actually, messaged in. He gave us some of his drink, this elderberry porth, which is absolutely mega. Yeah. And he said to us, I want to give away a few bottles. We came up with this idea of asking our guests to choose which of the submissions from the correspondence deserves a bottle of Tim Adams's elderberry porth for us to, or Tim will send it over to them. Who are you going to choose out of the submissions that we had, the topics for the free bottle of elderberry porth?
I'd like to say Jeff, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to say Jeff. Sorry, Jeff.
Are you going to give it to Jeff to have with Mr. Johns' girlfriend?
He's had enough pleasure. I think it's give it to the boys and maybe just have one last drink with Lenny. Was it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I don't think we can disagree with that as a suggestion. Yeah. Thank you, Paul. So Josh, Luke, Ozzy, and Will. You're going to have a bottle of elderberry porth to raise a glass to Len. So enjoy it and send us a photo as well. There's also Tim actually got in touch, Tim Adams, and he said he's offering all pod listeners a cracking deal. All you got to do is, if you want to buy two or more bottles, when you just Google elderberry porth, when you get to the checkout, put in Madams for free. I love his choice of discount code. The link is in the description to this podcast, but it's a good one if you want to get your hands on it.
Yeah, and speaking of offers, there's also still the chance to win yourself a Beretta Ultra Leggero shotgun. All you have to do is download our app, the Game Card, and you'll be entered into the draw. Again, the link will be in the description after this episode. But I mean, it's taken us a while to get to this point now, Paul, but I want to ask you about your shooting operation. You've got 2 shoots, that's right?
Yeah, I've run 2 shoots in Bedfordshire, one's slightly into Buckinghamshire, but yeah, been running them for quite a long story. I don't know how long we got, but yeah, been running them for a long time.
What got you into it?
Well, basically, my father's a gamekeeper. He's retired now, and I went from training with him, went to Sparsholt and Fordham Bridge to the Game Conservancy. At the time, it was called Game Conservancy. And then went to Stoll Park, Vestes, down in Cirencester. Went through the ranks there and then come down here and set a shoot up with a guy that bought an estate, which is Beckeridge Park. Set it up with him. There was a previous shoot on there before, but not really that great. Greatly run. So set up a new shoot. Run that with him for 8-9 years. Then he sold the place and made me redundant. And I took the shoot on myself. Then I took on another shoot, which is Buttermilk, about a year and a half later. So, yeah. And
awesome.
Yeah. What a story. And
so you did well after being made redundant when they sold it. You did well to sort of get the rights straight away.
Yeah.
Was that quite tricky?
It was in the sale, really. It was I think, helped the sale, that the shoot was going to be run by somebody that's already there and running the shoot. So, yeah.
And the 2 shoots, are they quite similar in I suppose, what would you call it, style, I suppose, or are they quite different?
No, they're actually both totally different, actually. You got Beckeridge Park's more of an open land game crop partridge with probably a third pheasants. Buttermilk is mostly woodlands, probably 600 acre block of woodland surrounded by arable fields with mostly pheasants with a handful of ducks. On a normal year, but it'll be different this year.
I was going to say, so is it Buttermilk that's had to adjust a lot more then? I know, well, because the other one's predominantly partridge. Both of them have totally changed.
Yeah, I mean, they will for this year. I mean, obviously had 2 years of COVID, which we actually did really well to, it was actually in the first like pandemic part time, it was actually, we got it sorted and it was actually sort of enjoyable in January. We actually got a lot done with like mini walked up type days. And then, last year was just like a reasonably normal year. And then this year with bird flu sort of like ruined the scenario again. So we got a few ducks in and we're doing a few duck days, but it's given us a chance to do a lot of repair work on the buildings. The shoot lodge, re-renovated the shoot lodge, which again, so it's quite nice with the two shoots because they're both different. You got the shoot lunches, more of like a 250 sort of bag day on Beckerings, and Buttermilk's more of a 150, 200 bird day with join your beaters with lunch. So it's a bit more lower key. So it's quite nice actually. Got best.
Yeah, and what's, are they predominantly all let days, or do you have a syndicate as well? And how do you?
I actually run two syndicates, a syndicate on each place of 6 days, and the rest are let days. This year we're probably planning on doing about 60 days. Well, actually,
really?
Not planning. There was 60 days booked in the diary, deposited, paid for, and it was looking to be a cracking. So looking to take on another keeper for Buttermilk, just to sort of release me a little bit more time. But obviously that's all changed, and hopefully next year we'll kick off the same sort of scenario as this year.
Nice. So how many guys have you got working for you across the two shoots then?
At the moment, just got one full-time guy, one full-time keeper on Beckerings who lives on the estate. And then Buttermilk, we're just do it a bit sort of part-time. We'll do some walked-up days there this year and a few ducks, a few hoppers. So it's not too taxing for anyone.
So you're very busy then?
Yeah. I mean, a normal year, we, like say, we do like 50, 60 days, including walked-up days as well, a few duck flights, and then we do probably, well, the COVID year, we've done 800 deer with clients.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah, So a normal year, about 500 to 600. So, yeah, so we're quite busy. We're quite busy chaps.
I'm struggling to work out how many days there are in the year that you can make use of now.
Yeah.
So you've got one keeper on one shoot.
Yeah.
Presumably you're out doing a lot on the other shoot.
Yeah, I do my share. Yeah. Yeah.
Plus you're taking people out stalking.
Yeah.
And you're doing loads of that.
Yeah.
And you're running 60 shoot days.
Yeah. And
have you got a family?
I think I have. Yeah. Do you know what? It's quite funny. I do a lot of socialising as well. I mean, I'm out doing a lot of stuff. It's just I mean, I've got guys that guiding for me as well. So I got guys. I did have a part-time keeper as well, which he finished. So, but yeah, it works. But I do need another keeper for next year, I think. So
I was going to say, alongside all of that, you're doing Field Sports Channel stuff as well.
Yeah, that's my holiday bits. Yeah, no, that is time consuming, to be fair. Like I say, it is very good fun, but it is not quite as it's hard work. Actually, that's what I'll say. It's amazing fun, great opportunity, love every minute of it, but it's a lot of work goes in behind the scenes, as you guys know, doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're rather more professional than we are.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'd say rather more professional. They're professional, we are. I think it's the way everything.
But Paul, how did all that come about? How did you get involved with those guys in the first place?
Well, I was actually still working for the estate at the time as a gamekeeper. And the early days, Charlie was friends with the editor of one of the magazines, and they said, could he come down, because I was doing a bit of writing for a magazine, could you come down and film me? And I wasn't keen on getting in front of camera because I just didn't want to, because I didn't want the profile really. And they did one of the first films actually with me. Chinese Water Deer was actually on my place, on Beckerings. And then I got made redundant. So I thought, well, let's look at the bigger picture here. That's advertising. Let's go. So that's the only reason behind it. And that's the reason I jumped on it, really. was doing stuff with Zeiss already, so they want doing some films, and then asked me to like do some stalking in them. It's not acting; it's just me doing my job.
Yeah.
It makes total sense, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, but by doing that, you've obviously got collaborations with some brands and stuff, but you've got a lot of people who then seek you out to go stalking.
Yeah.
So you know, it's a huge public benefit here that you've got loads of people into it because they've sort of been introduced to this personality behind a video.
Yeah, definitely. And people, they come stalking, they actually, or even at a game fair or a show, they start talking to you as if they know you. And it's really funny. I think I must have come stalking me or been on a game shoot before. So I can't remember everybody. And then they suddenly pipe up and say, "Oh, actually, it's the first time I met you." It's like, okay. So yeah, it's quite strange actually. But it's great for me. Great tool for business, definitely.
Yeah, I mean that whole kind of recognition thing is something that Chris and I are still slightly coming to terms with, I think. And we've got this added level of weirdness that they come up and they say, "I'm Herman," for example.
Yeah.
And then and you're like, "Oh Christ, why did I give you that name? And what was your story about?" And desperately trying to remember why I decided to call someone Algernon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
The thing I like, George, is that if more than one person listens to our podcast and they happen to try and find us, that ours is all audio only, so no one knows what we look like. So you can hide in the corner and get away with it.
Very true.
Just going back to the shoot for a minute. So you mentioned you put down more ducks for this year, which for those that aren't aware, I'm guessing, Paul, is because it's been very difficult to get hold of partridges or the number of pheasants that you want.
Yeah.
And so just talk me through the sort of situation that you're now facing. How's that been? Have you managed to sort of smooth it over? Are you now at the point where you're looking forward to the season and you've got through that? Where are you at?
Oh God, it's a minefield. So basically, like I said, I had 60 days booked up. Then we had the news on bird flu. Didn't quite know what was going to happen. So I sat on it. I notified all the teams and said, "Look, you got your choices. You have your money back straight away, your deposit back straight away, or we'll sit and wait." Most of them chose to wait, and then I think it was end of May time. Obviously, it wasn't going to happen. So I basically notified them all. Said, "Look, there's your money back. I am doing duck days. Do you want to swap it for a duck day? We'll do the same format. Run it like a shoot day. It's not going to be stood around a pond shooting tame ducks. It's going to be proper sporting stuff."
Yeah.
Both estates are quite nice because you've got some nice trees and the ponds are away, so you're not stood around the pond. Basically, it's some good sporting stuff. But luckily, also I took a bit of a punt at the very beginning because obviously ducks were short of numbers once everyone jumped onto it. So literally at the very beginning, I thought, you know what, I'm going to book quite a lot of duck up. So I booked a lot of duck up to counteract it. And the greatest thing is it's been really interesting to see the teams and the syndicates to support. People want to get out there shooting still. People that have come to the place just like to come out and see the friends, see me, catch up what's going on, see the beaters. It's actually, see the chef. So a lot of the teams have booked on. So we got like 20 days away now. So 20 good days away. And I got probably another 10 days to do. I'll do 30 days, and then I'll do quite a lot of walked up and sort of mini driven days as well to fill in, to keep Sam busy, the keeper.
I was going to say, that's definitely something George and I have been chatting about recently. Do you think you're going to find more walked up and mini driven days?
Yeah.
Just in terms of being, I suppose, not just at your shoot, but everywhere. Do you think that's going to be a bit more of a theme this year?
I think it will, but I think it'll be a bit of a closed ship because a lot of people won't, it'll be who you know and what you know. Myself, I normally do about 15, 20 days of like mini driven stroke walked up days, which are really good for me because we do the boundaries and an odd game cup on the side or a few odd ponds. So they're actually really good. But I think getting hold of them is still going to be a problem.
Yeah. There's just such high demand, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. And it's value for money, isn't it? It's a day out with good value.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think, so far, everything that we've seen this year is that, yes, prices have gone up dramatically, but it still seems like people want to get out in some way or another, whether that's a duck day or a bit more walked up shooting or whatever. I think it's really encouraging that people still want to to get out there and have a nice time with their mates.
Yeah, definitely. I still don't think a lot of the shooting world has actually come to the realization that they're not going to be shooting as much. They've heard all about it. They've done the game fair, that some of them have, and August is holiday time with the kids and get away. And then towards the end of August, I normally get a lot of inquiries then. And I think everyone's going to come back and go, hang on a minute. So that's why I tell you, if I've not been in a mad panic about selling some extra days, because I know they're going to go because there's not the shooting out there.
Oh, yeah.
So
I totally agree with you there. I know they'll go because it's always the way.
Yeah.
And this year more than ever, like, there's nothing worse than listening to like negative drone from a whole industry about what's happening.
Yeah.
You just sort of like, if it's your hobby, you just stand back a little bit and wait and see how it unfolds.
Yeah.
And that's what people are doing.
Yeah.
We can see the data tells us that.
Definitely.
So people will come back and they'll get out and they'll have a good time. And yes, people will do things a bit differently. Some people have to have smaller days because budgets don't allow, or they're going to have to pay a bit more just to get the day they wanted, and we'll get to February and maybe we'll have had a good laugh.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's a real weird, at the moment it's real strange for me, because normally we see a lot of birds up those tracks and partridges bursting out of game covers and pheasants up the feed ride. Yeah, we haven't got that this year. We got some ducks and some ponds, and we have got a few pheasants, to be fair. We have got a couple of thousand pheasants, and the other flip side of this year, because it's been very dry, we've got a lot of wild ones. We've got a lot of wild birds this year.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting.
I've been walking on the farm before work quite a lot recently, particularly while it's been hot, and they've all the crops have come off, and you're starting to see we saw them paired up in the spring, the partridges, and it's really nice to see now little coveys of 5 or 6 young'uns with mum, whirring away across the stubble. It's really encouraging, really nice to see.
Yeah, definitely.
That is good.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting, actually, because it's difficult to know when you're out in the season. I don't know if a keeper can ever tell, what's wild stock, what's not. You're just going to have to sort of just get a feeling, aren't you?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it normally all merges into one when you're putting down reasonable numbers. I think, this time of year when they show up, it started to cut, the crops being cut, you can see what broods are around.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be big drives, but I think it's going to be some nice walked up, possibly some, catch some birds on some
Brilliant
hedgerows and stuff.
Yeah, really nice. Paul, you get to do some pretty cool stuff. You've already sort of alluded to it with Field Sports Channel. You get to do some pretty cool things. Which of your trips abroad has been the most memorable, shall we say?
God, that's a good question, actually. I've been to some interesting places. Oh dear, the media hunts have been very good for social networking, and a great experience. That's some Zeiss media hunts have been amazing. Beautiful countries, South Africa, Eastern Cape was beautiful. Probably most unexpected one actually was Slovenia. Slovenia is like the unspoilt Austria. No people, beautiful surroundings. Still, it's basically unruined by tourists. I hate tourists and I hate people. So, so it's I'll say Slovenia is probably one of the most memorable and beautiful trips. It snowed on the first day. We're in the mountains. Yeah, for Chamois that was amazing.
Wow.
Probably the one.
That sounds cool. I love the fact you've just done the Slovenian tourist board job for them by calling them the unspoilt Austrians.
Must be the truth. But we got some cool ones coming up. Actually, we got plan to do red stag in Scotland. That'd be quite cool on ponies. And then we're planning to go to Mozambique, which is going to be really cool. But it's a nightmare at the moment with visas and trying to get firearms passes into the country and all the horrible jabs and stuff. So that's going to be interesting. So that's one for this year, and maybe Spain as well. I think going through the Basiti Mountains from Basiti Ibex. So that'd be cool as well. So got some good stuff.
Wow. I mean, added to everything we said earlier, you're still fitting all this in. That's
no, this year is not a problem. This year, I've got a few shoot days. Sam the keeper can run those. No, I'll be there. So
that would have been news for Sam, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So what was your first love then? I mean, you talk about rifles a lot. Obviously, you you started at a young age keepering. Was it rifle, shotgun? Which was it that got you into all of this?
Obviously going out, like you say earlier about going out with your father. So I was out with my dad when he was out doing the trap round. I started off with a garden gun, I think a 9mm garden gun, and moved on to a 410. So shotguns, hunting rabbits down, that was pretty cool in them days. I did a lot of shotgun shooting when I was younger. I did a lot of clays. I was a AAA shot at like 13, I think it was. I think I made myself sick of clays. Yeah, it was just too much. And I was very, very fortunate to be invited to some nice estates as well. I grew up in the Cotswolds, so I shot all the Cotswold estates down to Badminton, and so I've done a lot of shotgun shooting. And I think I've always had a passion for roe stalking. Yeah, out of everything, out of all the stalking, I've always still got a passion for roe stalking now. It's very difficult actually. I'm not 100% fixed on one thing.
Is it a bit like I talking from a bit of experience here? It changes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you do a lot or you get involved in a lot of something, your passion becomes what you're not involved in the whole time.
Yeah, definitely. And I did go off when early days of I was setting up the shooting stuff. I didn't do much game shooting myself. I just felt it was like being on a work day, and the stresses of running a shoot is quite a lot when you're setting up a new shoot. So I didn't do a lot for the early days of my own shoot, as you'd think I'd be doing loads, but no, not at all. So the rifle shooting, stalking took over then more so.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it's interesting that you've in many ways followed that traditional path. Dad was a keeper, all that sort of thing. Sparsholt and then working your way up through the ranks. But I think it's also fair to say that you've got quite a forward-looking, quite a modern outlook on the shooting world and having a career in the shooting world. What advice would you give to someone who's sort of just graduated from Sparsholt, say, or is about to do their first apprenticeship on a shoot? They're looking to forge a career. Do you think you need to have all those different strings to your bow to be able to, have a nice lifestyle doing it, or is it still possible to just be a keeper, so to speak?
Do you know what? It's about what you want individually. So my father was a gamekeeper. He started up and he was a carpenter stroke handyman gamekeeper for an estate, and he reared under broodies, and all he wanted to do was be a gamekeeper. So he went to Ireland and was gamekeeper out there because the jobs I think it was the 70s, weren't many jobs in the UK. So he went out to Ireland for 3 or 4 years, back to the UK, and his life is being revolved around producing pheasants, looking after the estate, managing the deer, all the conservation side of it. He loves it. He's retired. He's been retired for 4, 5, 6 years now. He still rings me and talks about bloody pheasants. He's obsessed with them, and he's been around them all his life. And that's what I mean. So, and then you've got other guys a bit more commercially minded. I've always been sort of like quite outward going, I suppose, and I think it's probably that's why the kickboxing, because I always wanted to be the best at that type of thing, to get to, it's about goals all the time. So, and with the shoots, so I wanted to get the shoot to be the best the shoot could be, and then I get to another shoot and I get that one it's like improving. It's like a challenge. So I quite like challenges, really. But so I think anybody can do anything at all. Anybody world champion, anyone can run a shoot. It's all about wanting it and getting off your butt and doing it. Basically, that's the truth of the matter. It hasn't been given to me. I've done a lot of 4:30 starts and 11 o'clock finishes or later.
Yeah.
We're almost starting and ending with a lesson in psychology. I love it.
Yeah,
it's so true. But you obviously got that aspect, and that's the bit that is the hardest to come by, isn't it? It's you can have the passion bit, but then you've got to apply it.
Yeah, you do, and it's about what makes you happy, and that's the thing. My dad was happy in his job. He loved his job. He hardly left the estate, hardly went on holiday, but he loved it. So he had a great life, great career all the way through. Done like how many years it was, a lot of years doing on the same estate, like 40 odd years on the same estate. So why do what I do and run around like a stupid idiot and do all these days and but I enjoy it. That's what I do. So it's each to themselves. But I think it's hard. I think it's hard for the youngsters at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, as you said, it's just a few years of turmoil almost that you kind of need to get through, and then we'll see what sort of comes out the other side. And yeah, I think it'll get back to relative normal quite soon.
Yeah, definitely.
I hope, anyway.
No, I think definitely. I think it will. I think it'll all level itself out. Get the wheat prices down a bit more, and bird prices up and down.
Yeah. I suppose the question on the bird flu front remains to be seen as to sort of where that's going to be after a lack of supply, breeding issues, and the rest of it. That our Shoot Hub podcast went into that. I won't go into it now, but it's still a bit up in the air on that front.
Yeah. But talking of hopes and dreams, Paul, the way we like to finish off every podcast is to ask our guests to describe their desert island shooting, their sort of imaginary last ever day out in the field. So the question is, where are you going? What are you doing? Who are you taking with you? Money is no object. Logistics don't really matter. What's the dream?
Right then, it's going to be a busy one for me, you'd imagine. Right.
Go for it.
It would be the last day. So up first thing, roast hawking.
Yeah.
Breakfast, probably with my dad, actually. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Then on to a game shoot, probably a local farmer's shoot with a load of characters, using my 410, because that's just a good fun.
Yeah.
And then maybe ship up to do a grouse drive. That'd be quite cool.
So we're going to need a helicopter.
I thought.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
So the chopper's way. So you go from rough and ready, local farm syndicate to the grouse moor.
Yeah. Changing guns, obviously. Probably go double guns on that one. Then probably just head out. Let's go to Yorkshire. That drop down to Yorkshire and do some high pheasants and partridge.
Yeah. So are you at lunch yet?
Yes, lunch now. Lunch. But only a quick lunch. And then we jump on the Senajet. We head out to Germany and we do a driven boar afternoon, because that would be pretty mega. Traditional style with all the hunting horns. Do the afternoon and then probably ship back on the Senajet again and have a nice duck evening flight somewhere. Probably on site up in Norfolk somewhere with a nice mixed bag of wildfowl. Get back home, probably get on the quad and do some rabbiting. That'd be quite good fun.
Yeah.
And then maybe go foxing. Boys like doing that, but I'll go just to finish the day off. And then probably that would be it.
And then meet everyone from the syndicate in the pub.
Yes, and then beat them all there for about 11:30 for last orders.
Perfect. I mean, that's definitely the most ambitious, I think, so far. What do you think, Chris?
I love it. It's one of the only ones I can remember that has actually challenged time.
It's your last day.
I think he's done that really nicely.
Your last day, you got to make the most of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you did start at like midnight, I think that's probably doable. But it's epic. I love it.
It come close. It'll not be funny. It's a 4:00 start on the Roebucks. It's getting light, cracking light at 4:00 in the spring.
Yeah, it was the quick shift up to Scotland and then Yorkshire before lunch, which I think pushed it.
Remember that? That's no problem.
Yeah, chopper will be a breeze.
Yeah. I didn't even want to wonder whether they're all in season at the same time. They are, aren't they?
Yeah, just about.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's
exactly.
Great.
Very good.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really good fun.
Yeah, awesome.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. That's great.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Right. So before we go, as per usual, there is one final reminder that you can get your hands on a pair of the very exclusive Guns on Pegs podcast shooting sock garters by sending us your shooting dilemmas for us to resolve, or by sharing your unpopular opinion or nominating your shooting hero. Just send us an email to pod@gunsonpegs.com, and if we use it in the next episode or any future episodes, we will send you some garters. We will be back in a couple of weeks' time with another episode and another excellent guest for you all. But until then, thanks very much for listening, and Goodbye.
Wow.